Let's have a look at different types of non-sampling error. So these are anything that's to do with the sample itself and this way of collecting the data. So for example, non-response error. So this is looking at where, if you've got, for example, only a response rate of 5%, that means that we've got information about 5% of the people we're interested in, but we don't have any information about 95% of the people we're interested in. And that tells me that there's a lot of information that I don't know, and therefore those that didn't respond could think quite differently to those that did respond. Okay, so that's what non-response error is. A second type is selection error. So this is when you've got a group that is excluded or underrepresented in a survey. Okay, so for example, if I go to the primary school and take a sample of students at the primary school, then if I'm interested in children of all ages, if that's my target population, then the younger children will be overrepresented and the older children will be underrepresented, or in this case excluded, because we didn't have any older children in that sample. Okay, so that would be selection error in the way of selecting who you've selected. A third one is our response error, and this is when we ask people a question and we don't always get a truthful answer. So for example, if I was to ask about a sensitive topic, say I might ask a student, how much alcohol did you drink on the weekend? What I might find is that they will give me the answer that they think I want to hear, or that's the cool answer. They may or may not give me the truthful answer. Okay, so when people give untruthful answers, then that is called response error. Self-selection error, so that's looking at those who have volunteered to give me answers. They may think differently to those that do not volunteer. Okay, so if I was to take a survey and ask what political party people approve of, then it may be that I get it's only people who have very strong opinions that are going to volunteer that information. So they would be overrepresented in my survey. Another one is survey error. And so survey error is looking at errors within the survey itself. So if you go back to the questionnaire design topic, then thinking about how we worded the question. Was it a neutral question? Was it a biased question? Was it a leading question? The order in which questions were asked, etc. The types of options. Were all the answers given? Those are all errors due to the survey itself. So let's have a look at some questions here. So what is bias? So bias is when you feel when one group is overrepresented, or you are choosing one viewpoint more commonly. Okay, so bias is a preference for a particular answer or group. So I might be biased towards liking Macs rather than liking PCs. So why do we want representative data? Well, if we've got data that's representative, then I can apply that and make inferences about the wider population. So it gives me, it's much more powerful, much more accurate, and so that's why we would want it. So representative data is more accurate and more informative, and will allow us to make better decisions. Okay, so what type of non-sampling error is shown in this cartoon? So let's talk about, this is Calvin and Hobbes. I'm filling out a reader survey for Chewing magazine. C, they asked how much money I spend on gum each week, so I wrote $500. For my age, I put 43, and when they asked me what my favourite flavour is, I wrote garlic/curry. This magazine should have some amusing ads soon. I love messing with data. So this is looking at the idea of the answers that he's given are not truthful answers. Okay, he doesn't spend $500 a week on gum. He isn't 43 years old. So this would be a response error, and that the responses that he's given are incorrect. Okay, so that's an example of response error. His answers are not truthful. Okay. Describe some ways that we can minimize or reduce the amount of non-sampling errors present in a survey. So reducing the amount of errors. So think about the different types. Okay, so non-response error. That's when you've got a low response rate. So how could we improve the response rate? Well, one thing I do know is that if I ask people face-to-face, could you do the survey for me? It's much harder for them to say no than if I send them an email or a text message. So that would be one thing that I could do to improve it. So by asking people face-to-face for responses will improve the response rate and decrease the non-response error. So that's one thing that we could do. What else could we do? Let's have a look. So selection error. So that's when when a group is underrepresented or excluded. Okay, so that is in terms of setting up. That's setting up our sample more carefully. Response error. So that's in terms of trying to get more truthful answers. What are some ways that we can encourage people to give more truthful answers? Well, if a survey is anonymous, then people are more likely to give truthful answers. Okay, so that's one thing another thing I could do. What else have we got? Survey wording. So that's, the wording of the questions, the order that they're asked. So another thing that we could do is to make sure that the survey is checked and question wording, etc. is improved before sending out our survey. Okay, so there's a few ideas for you.